Good morning, all. This is Matt Tour. I'm glad you could join us here this morning. Glad to have you on board. This is Matt Tour with Insurance Agency Marketing. I'm a marketing specialist on the annuity side. We're joined here shortly by Ryan Lex, Ibexis EVP. Great guy, known him for a number of years. And Sam Weiss, from Head of Marketing and Sales from Life Innovators, who helped develop this product. We're going to be talking about today is the FIA Plus with Ibexis. We're looking forward to seeing some great success with this plan, and should be a great product moving forward. Again, we're thanking you for joining us today. This is Matt Tour at Insurance Agency Marketing Services. We're going to go ahead and get this started right away. So we're going to go over to Ryan Lex, EVP from Ibexis. Morning, Ryan.
Hey, Matt, thanks for having us today. Hope you're doing great. And hey, welcome everybody. Hope all is well in your world. First of all, let me just say thank you to everybody on the call. I have been friends with IAMS for a number of years, and it's great to reconnect with some old friends anytime we get the chance to. So again, thanks for joining, number one. And number two, I want to say thank you to the producers and marketers at IAMS who have helped Ibexis get off the ground as we started distributing product essentially just 6 short months ago. Our MIGA Plus product, which we introduced back in September of 2022, has had quite a bit of success, and I know a lot of that success is in large part, a very large part, to my friends at IAMS. So I can't say thank you enough to IAMS and the IAMS team for all that you have done to help us grow our sales and introduce that product. And with that, we're really excited about our opportunity to introduce a new product to you today, which we're going to get into shortly. But just as a reminder of who we are at Ibexis, Ibexis is a company like many of the companies that are in the market now, such as Athene or F&G, where we have an asset management partner who is looking at the insurance space and, quite frankly, is bullish about the future of the insurance markets. And if you are on this call today or you're listening to this recorded, you should be excited about the future of this business, because there are very smart people with a lot of capital that believe there's an opportunity to deliver value to not only you, the agent or advisor that is sharing product with the consumer, but to the consumer themselves, based upon where this market is going. So again, thank you for participating. Again, Ibexis is an A- rated company. We have a long history of experience in this space, from our CEO all the way through to our operations team and our sales team. A number of us have been in this business for a long time, and we're excited to see what we're doing to offer new and innovative product into the market. So with that, I'm really excited today to introduce to you our newest product, and it's our first FIA. It's called the FIA Plus. And much like the MIGA Plus that we introduced back in September, it's really hard to innovate in a space that has had a ton of innovation and enhancement. With the MIGA Plus, we're able to share with you, hey, it's not just a fixed annuity, but you also have access to this index-linked bucket where you could get additional yield on your investment. And so the FIA Plus is not just an FIA, but there's also something unique about it that gives your customer an opportunity to get something a little bit different that they may not be offered through other FIAs. So with that, I am really happy to introduce Sam Weiss, my friend, my partner at Life Innovators. Sam's going to take us through the product. So Sam, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Ryan. It's been a pleasure working with you all at Ibexis on the design and the implementation of FIA Plus here. And, just a big thanks to IAMS for your partnership and for having us on. And thanks everybody for taking time out of your day to be here. So with that, we've got a lot to cover with FIA Plus. So let's jump right into things. When you look at FIA Plus, just to sort of echo Ryan's comments, it's consistent with Ibexis's current product theme, right? A strong base product with optionality not seen in other products in the marketplace. And, similar to MIGA Plus, which launched last year, at its core, MIGA Plus, it's a MIGA, but it has additional optionality that other MIGAs don't have, with that performance trigger on the S&P 500. And you can think of FIA Plus in the same light. FIA Plus, it's a fixed indexed annuity. It has the same major benefits that all FIAs have. If you want, it can behave exactly the same as other FIAs in the marketplace that are built for growth and accumulation, but it has additional optionality. So when a client has gains in their contract, they can elect to use those gains and pursue higher upside potential that is above and beyond anything else in the market. So, if you're predicting a bull run, you can go risk on in this product. If you're anticipating a recession or some sort of market pullback, you can go risk off. And these are choices that traditional FIAs don't have, and that's really what makes FIA Plus so powerful. But one thing I want to be very clear on, whether or not a client wants to put gains at risk and pursue higher upside, that's a choice that they can make each contract anniversary. And I think that's huge. If we just look back, starting in 2020, it's been arguably the most chaotic 3 years in most people's lives, right? We had COVID. In 2020, the S&P 500, it lost 34% of its value. It went on to make a full rebound. Then it lost 20% again in 2022, and 2022 was also the worst year ever for a 60-40 portfolio. So, many of you probably have clients, they're asking themselves, am I going to have enough money to retire? Are my investments going to keep up with inflation? But between a client's investment accounts, the interest rate environment, even what we've seen in the banking sector over the last month, right? What does this mean for my investment outlook? And I just think with all the economic uncertainty that's going on now more than ever, I think clients need safety, they need flexibility, and they need choices when it comes to their retirement. I do want to touch on just the high-level contract specs. So the FIA Plus, it comes in a 7 and 10-year chassis. The 7-year issues to 83 and the 10-year issues to age 78. 25,000 is the minimum. 1.5 million is the max without prior company approval. It's a full death benefit. Free withdrawals are 10% beginning in year 2. The contract is also RMD friendly beginning in year 2, and you can see the state availabilities here on the screen. We're currently in 41 states and DC. And one other item to note, there is no explicit fee for FIA Plus or any of its features, no fee whatsoever. It is all built right into the contract. Like I mentioned prior, the FIA Plus, it can behave just like an FIA, and it does that by either utilizing something called an annual lock or by selecting or staying in just the 0% floor. But I want to talk about the initial application process and when a client will make those decisions. So as part of the initial app process, a client is going to select their initial premium allocations. And these allocations, they can be made to either the index link strategy or the fixed interest strategy. Now, the index link strategy, that process, it's just like the initial allocation decisions you make in a growth product. FIA Plus, there's 3 available index options, and you can allocate to one or more of those indices in any combination. The initial allocations, they'll always be in the 0 floor because there's no gains in the contract yet. In each contract anniversary, those allocations, they can be adjusted. A client can also, they can allocate a portion of their premium to something called the fixed interest strategy. And that strategy, it earns a stated annual rate of fixed interest. It's compounded and credited daily. One thing to note, any allocations or transfers to the fixed interest strategy cannot be transferred back to the index link strategy. So just something to be aware of there. The index options, here are the current options inside of FIA Plus. And we were really purposeful here, in working with Ibexis and selecting the index partners that are best for this chassis. We think each index, it has its benefits and they all complement each other very well. So we have the familiar, the S&P 500, the annual point-to-point with a cap. And then there's also a Bank of America index, which uses its patented fast convergence technology. This index, it's really your home run hitter. It's equity only, and it has an extremely high volatility target of 12.5%. So there's the opportunity for higher returns here and participating in more of the upside with a rising equities market. but you also might see some more zeros or negative years here. You can take the ride up, but you also have to take the ride down. In the HSBC, the AIGT index, that has a 7% volatility target. And that index, it leverages artificial intelligence to invest across a global portfolio of equities, gold, and bond ETFs. So it's much more diversified, and this is more for your singles and your doubles. And another differentiator here is that this is actually the first index of its kind that uses Amazon and AWS technology, and it uses that to analyze data thousands of times faster than humans. So just a really neat story with the different indices that are available. Here are the current launch rates. All rates are banded at $100,000, and within the index link strategy, like I said, there's 3 interest crediting strategies. But if you evaluate each floor option, right, you'll notice the lower the floor, the higher the rate in either the form of a cap or participation rate. And having an upside cap rate of 22.5% on the S&P 500 is unheard of in fixed indexed annuities. And both engineered indices have par rates north of 200% in that negative 15% floor. So extremely competitive rates across the board. Even if you step outside of fixed annuities, if you look at RILAs or registered index linked annuities, that's a rapidly growing annuity product category that many of you are probably familiar with. And RILAs, they're technically securities, they're not insurance products. And in 2022, a lot of producers, a lot of clients, they saw their first losses inside of RILAs. And from a rate perspective, RILAs, a lot of them have negative 10% floors, which the FIA Plus, it also has, and the rates inside of the FIA Plus are priced so that they're very competitive to what you'd see in RILAs. I think the FIA Plus, hey, it's a great positioning tool here. Even if you're an advisor, maybe you're only doing life business, you're not securities licensed, or if you're doing managed money under an RIA, with FIA Plus, you can get RILA-like functionality, get some of those bigger wins, bigger wins compared to a standard FIA, but still have that full principal protection. FIA Plus, it can be an FIA if you want it to be, and it can be a RILA if you want it to be. Clients, they can get the best of both worlds in a single product with no additional fees. And just a side note here too, as we've rolled this product out, we've had a lot of conversations with advisors and producers, and some of the people we've talked to, they've been unhappy with some of the renewal rates they've received as part of their annual review processes recently. And Ibexis, they're pricing the FIA Plus so that the product and the rates can stay consistent through the 7 or 10 year term. Ibexis, they don't anticipate having to reduce rates on any future contract anniversaries, but there could be scenarios where we just see option costs go through the roof if there's a ton of market volatility, or if there's other economic circumstances that you just can't plan for. The renewals might have to come down slightly. But with FIA Plus, a client has the option to move into lower floor strategies and have access to higher rates if that were to happen. While in other FIAs, you're simply stuck with the base rate, the 0% floor rate. Again, not a situation we anticipate, but if it were to happen, a client will have options from a rate perspective. So with that being said, let's look at actually how clients can leverage the gains they have in their contract and how some of these lower floors become available. So what you're looking at on the screen, this table actually shows the available options for a client in a hypothetical $100,000 FIA Plus policy. Inside the index link strategy, what a client will have is both strategy values, and in the first year, this is the initial premium, and also a tracking value. And the tracking value can increase or decrease each year based on index performance. So, from the chart here, in the first year, the strategy value and the tracking value, they're equal because there's no gains in the contract. And because there's no gains, you can see that only the 0% floor is available. In year 2, the client does well, they earn a positive return, their tracking value grows to 107,350. Now, as you can see, now the TVAR is the technical name for it, but for our purposes, you can think of this as the gains in the contract. That's now negative 6.8. What that number is, that's the most you could possibly risk while keeping the principal protected. And the gains, that's used to determine what floors are available. So in year two, the gains of 6.8%, that opens up the negative 2.5% floor and the negative 5% floor as available client selections. And the negative 2.5% floor and the negative 5% floor, they carry with them higher rates, higher cap rates, higher par rates, which we saw, on the previous slide with the launch rates. So if we move to year three, the gains of 14.8%, all the floors are now available except the negative 15% floor because the gains aren't quite at 15%. In year four, the client earns another positive return. All floors are now available to the client as potential selections. And really, when you look at contract anniversaries for regular FIAs, a client makes two decisions, right? What index and what percentage to allocate to each index. With FIA Plus, you choose the index, you choose the percentage allocations, and you also choose your floor. Clients have additional optionality and flexibility each contract anniversary. So the following example here, this is a 10-year FIA Plus, $100,000 initial premium in the last 10 years of S&P 500 data. So the light blue, that's the strategy value. That's based on the initial premium. In the green area, that's the tracking value. That shows the performance of the initial premium and the selected index allocations over time. The clients, they're very conservative in this scenario. They keep their floor limit at 0 for the entire contract. And by doing that, their initial premium and any gains in the tracking value, that'll be downside protected through the duration of the contract. So the worst they can do is 0%. In this example, the product, it's behaving just like an FIA built for growth and accumulation. And one thing that I think is really important to note is the tracking value, that larger number that's growing over time, that can be leveraged by the client for withdrawal purposes. If they surrendered, if there was a death benefit, if they annuitized, all of those are based on that larger tracking value number. After 10 years, the end result for the client is $213,453 after an initial premium of $100,000. Here's another example. In this example, this client, they've got a more risk-on approach. They want to use the negative 15% floor limit. Basically, they want to move into the lowest floors possible as they become available. And the client keeps this negative 15% floor limit for the duration of the 10-year term. So as the FIA Plus, as it earns interest over time, there is downside risk of accrued gains, not principal, but gains. And you can see by that gray dotted line, but they can never go below the blue area, their strategy value, right? Their initial premium can never go below that. And with the client being in those lower floors and they're receiving the higher rates, in this example, they started with $100,000, but at the end of the 10-year term, they're at $275,000. So a ton of upside here. And I do want to touch on a feature that is available. It's optional, but it can be exercised every year if desired. And this is something that is called the annual lock. Maybe you like FIA Plus, you like the indices, you like the competitive rates, you like the stories with the indices, but you don't want to utilize those negative floors. You don't even want to talk about them on contract anniversary or consider them. What you can do is you can exercise an annual lock every year. And when you do that, all initial premium and any earned interest, it's locked each year. And the tracking value and the strategy value equal each other each contract anniversary. There isn't two values to keep track of. There's not an option to move into lower floors each year because the gains are locked. So this approach really simplifies the story of FIA Plus. And when utilizing the annual lock, it's going to behave just like other growth and accumulation FIAs that are out there. And just graphically to give you an idea of what the annual lock would look like. Again, interest is locked every year and the tracking value and strategy value equal each other. And lastly, we'll just look at a situation here. The contract owner, they elect their negative 15% floor at issue. They do well for the first 5 years of the contract, and then midway through, they want to take gains off the table. So they exercise that annual lock at the midway point. And again, that's a choice that they can have each contract anniversary. But in this case, after 5 years, their tracking value equals their strategy value. All their gains up to that point are now protected. They can't go below that amount. You can think of this as their new cost basis in the product moving forward. The 151, 891, they can never go below that moving forward. So more optionality there for clients and you as producers. And then just lastly, I want to touch on the withdrawals and waivers in the contract. 10% free withdrawals beginning in year 2. Those 10% free withdrawals, like I mentioned, they're based on the tracking value, again, that higher value most often. And a client can decide if they want that withdrawal to come out of their index link strategy, or if they've got money in that fixed bucket, they could take the withdrawals out of that as well. And waivers, the FIA Plus, there's waivers at no additional cost. Clients, they can leverage these for the unexpected. There's an extended care waiver and a terminal illness waiver. Each are available after the first year of the contract. The extended care waiver, that's confinement in a nursing home or hospital for 90 consecutive days. And the terminal illness waiver, if a client's diagnosed, that's expected to result in death within 12 months, they can exercise that. So with that, I think that concludes the product portion. And thanks again for your time. And with that, I will turn it back over.
Appreciate that, Sam. I've had a couple questions that came up during the presentation so far. So can a client put money in multiple buckets, maybe put part in like the 2.5 minus, part in the 10% minus, then part
Yeah,
in
that's a
the
great
other one?
question. That's a great question. So they can allocate money amongst the available indices, basically in any percentage they'd like, but they have to choose only one floor. So all the allocations have to all be in either the 0 floor or the -5 floor, or the -15. Unfortunately, you cannot mix and match between the
Okay.
floors.
Okay. And then when they make money on that floor, is that additional interest earned on the entire amount, including the $100,000 base, or is it just earned on the interest portion of that? It's in
It's
that bucket.
earned on the entire value of the contract, including the initial premium and the base.
Okay. That question came up. And then, as you mentioned, once you put money in the fixed strategy, it stays in the fixed for the duration of the contract. If you use a lock, let's say you lock that one that you did in the 5th year there,
Mm-hmm.
that next year, does that have to be in the 0% floor?
Yeah. So once you lock, you're basically you're taking your tracking value gains and you're applying them to the strategy value. So yes, once you exercise an annual lock, if you did a full 100% annual lock, you would only have the option in the following year to be in the 0% floor, because you basically took your gains off the table, right? And in order
Right.
to move into negative floors, you have to have gains to put at risk, essentially. So when you lock, you're protecting the initial premium and anything earned to that point, but you're also taking those gains off the table. So you can't move into the negative floors. You can later on once you accrue those gains again, but for that first year, yeah, you're in the 0 floor.
Right. And then at that point, you could actually put more money in the fixed allocation if you wished.
Yes, you can transfer money to the fixed at any point, at any contract anniversary. Correct.
Okay, that sounds good. And then the rates will change on an annual basis based on renewal rates.
That's correct.
And then, based on how you did the year before, you could move your money around between, figure out if you want to go with the higher bucket, the lower bucket, just, depends what's available based on your gains and your policy.
That is correct. And that'll all be outlined on the statement, what floors that you have available to you in the following year.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, like you said, you can change your percentage allocations among the S&P and the B of A and HSBC. You can change those every year. They just, as you know, they just have to equal 100%, but it can be basically in any denomination.
Right. And then if you do a 10% free withdrawal and it reduces your gain, below one of those levels, then it will minimize the number of levels you can go to based on the post-withdrawal value of your policy. Is that's correct also?
Yeah, you can take a free withdrawal. It is a pro rata reduction. But typically those free withdrawals, because it's a pro rata reduction, it's not going to affect what floors you have available to you. Those floors
Okay.
will stay the same.
Okay. So I would think if you had 100,000, it grew to 110, you took the $10,000 out, then you'd be back down to 100,000. So that would that make it so you could just use the 0% floor at that point?
Yeah, but like I said, the withdrawal, whatever, it is a pro rata reduction. So principal is going to come out and interest is going to come out because it's a pro rata reduction, the percentage gain that you have in the contract is still the same. And that percentage gain is what determines floor availability. So if we're thinking about, if we're thinking about it the same way, you can take a free withdrawal, but it's not, because it's pro rata, it's just not, you're not just taking all the gains out first. So you're not sort of handicapping yourself back to the zero floor.
So you'd actually have part gain, part principal coming out.
Correct.
Based on those ratios.
Correct. So you would still, the ratio of your gains would still remain the same, which determines what floors are available to you.
Right. And then the last question was, if you got to the end of the contract and the last year you had a bad year that took your value back down, you could never actually go below your principal. The principal is always going to be guaranteed at that point.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's the thing. The contract would never allow a client to go into a negative floor such that a full loss would take them below their principal, because that floor would never open up to the client, right? If you're in the negative 15% floor, a negative 15% loss, the contract would never allow somebody, say we start with 100,000, you're at 115, or, it would only, if you would have to be above 115,000 to stomach that full 15% loss. If you started with 100 and you were at 105, it wouldn't allow you to move into the negative 15 floor, because that negative 15 floor would take you below that initial principal.
Sure.
So it's always protected.
Good. Well, that's all the questions that came up this morning, Sam. So appreciate you and Ryan joining us this morning. Anything you guys want to finish off with this morning before we close the webinar today?
Nothing here, Matt. Just again, I want to reiterate, thank you so much to IAMS for being a partner. You guys are great partners to us, and we appreciate it.
Appreciate that, Ryan. Anything else you got this morning, Sam?
I don't think so. No, I appreciate you having me on, and as questions arise or come up, feel free to ping me and let me know. Happy to run through the product individually with anybody, or any one-on-one or smaller webinars. I'm your resource at your disposal. Just let me know how I can help.
Appreciate that, Sam. Appreciate everyone joining us this morning. It's a very innovative product that Ibexis has introduced with the help of Life Innovators. So we appreciate all the help on that side. Look forward to a great start on the sales on this contract. I do like the fact you do start at the base level, work your way up as you earn interest, and that really gives your client a green light to try to earn more and more, as you go through the contract. And then having that lock feature, if you have a really good year where you make 22.5%, and you think the market's going to tank next year, the ability to lock that gain in is huge. I think